All right, so we've had a lot of victories in the past few years with the pro-life movement, and most notably the Texas Heartbeat Law, followed by the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And while that's something to celebrate, our work certainly is not done. So, Erin, Getz, can you tell me the trend you're seeing with the state marches and how it's changed in the last couple of years?
Absolutely. This trend we're seeing is both an increase in attendance to the marches, which is a really beautiful thing after the overturn of Roe versus Wade, but also an increase in the energy and the hope and the excitement for what is ahead of us. Obviously, we had that goal in front of us of overturning Roe v. Wade for nearly 50 years, and now that that's gone, the hope and the excitement is re-energized. We have new goals in front of us, and it's a battleground in each and every state. Just in my home state of Connecticut, we were fighting this horrible bill that was going to use $2 million of taxpayer funding to pay for women out of state to come into Connecticut to have an abortion, pay for their travel, pay for their lodging, everything. And we had about 4,000 people in Hartford, Connecticut. Connecticut's not a very big state, so that was really amazing to see, and that bill died after hearing our voices, and it was incredible. And even the year before, it was the very first Connecticut March for Life, and Connecticut is a very pro-abortion state. No parental consent or notification is required. It is pretty much pro-abortion through and through. And we had 3,000 people there that first year, and we were so loud and joyful, they actually had to stop session inside of the State House until we left because we were so interruptive outside of the State House building. So we're definitely seeing a growing trend of excitement, attendance, and it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Wow, that's great. I went with Jonathan Saenz in DC, and yeah, the energy was it was so exciting, and you would think that it was, you know, people might think that everything is done, but no, it's not. And I noticed that whenever I was there. That
absolutely, continuing to march is probably one of the most important things that we can do. Yeah.
Very cool. So, Erin, again, which states are seeing the most increase in participation? Pro-life states or otherwise?
Well, I'm happy to report that over the last year, all of our state marches actually saw an increase in attendance. So that is a really wonderful thing. Our highest attended march is in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, the capital there. And that was, I think, one of the more memorable state marches, not just because of the day of the march, but the day after, which might sound funny, but it's because the very next day, pro-abortion groups had their own rally. And we had a sea of about 6,000 people there on the day of the Pennsylvania March for Life. And the very next day, at their rally, there maybe was 100 people at their rally. And so, yes, it was great. And we have this really great comparison shot of the two crowds happening. And one of their speakers had said, "Wow, I'm just looking out into a sea of people." And a friend of mine remarked, "Wow, it looks pretty dry for a sea of people." But it was a really beautiful thing to see that pro-lifers are showing up in a battleground state and to continue marching even after Roe has been overturned. So we're definitely seeing increases, and we're seeing it go up, and we're moving into new states even in 2024, so we're very excited.
That's incredible. Jodi, Hendricks, so can you tell me, so I saw an article in New Mexico Political Report about a billboard in New Mexico on the New Mexico-Arizona state line. So it's the usual welcome sign you see entering any state, only it had a clear statement that took up about half of the billboard, and it read, "Our rights are safe, abortion care is legal, paid for by Planned Parenthood." So how do you think this encourages abortion trafficking across state lines?
Well, unfortunately, I think that it has made New Mexico a beacon for abortion trafficking. And it's not just the Arizona state line, it's every entrance into New Mexico. Every single welcome sign says, "Welcome to New Mexico, where abortion is still legal," or something like, "Our rights are safe, abortion care is legal." And so I think that kind of sets the precedent for where our leadership is right now. They're proud of this, they're boasting. And so these signs kind of boast that come to New Mexico, no questions asked type of mentality. which is just horribly dangerous for victims of trafficking, those who would be brought in to receive abortions with really no accountability in the industry. It's been even more dangerous in this past year, this past legislative session. We actually saw 3 specific bills pass, signed into law by our governor, that create, there's 3 of them, they all kind of work in tandem together, but ultimately what they do is they create unrestricted access to abortion, even to our minors, with no parental notification required. But then it goes as far as protecting third parties who would take a minor to receive an abortion with no parental notification or involvement. So now we have made it a prime situation for traffickers to be able to bring young girls to New Mexico. Then it gets even worse. In boasting about these laws, our governor created the New Mexico Reproductive Health Hotline. And this hotline is specifically meant to let women know about abortions, where they can go, where the nearest clinic is, where they can stay when they come, but it also offers financial aid. They will cover your transportation to New Mexico. They will cover your stay while you're in New Mexico, and they will cover your abortion. And so we have all of these things that are just making New Mexico this beacon for people to come to with no accountability. We know from inside sources that these abortion clinics are not asking the security questions, the safety questions that are meant to screen for trafficking, so that's not happening. And now they have gone so far in law to protect those who would bring these young girls or these women to receive these services. So really, it's a dangerous ground where our abortion tourism is drastically increasing. We're seeing a huge majority of the abortions in New Mexico from out-of-state women and young girls, and that makes us that spot, right? That everybody thinks they can come to, no questions asked.
So I saw that our good friend Mark Lee Dixon, he has sanctuary cities for the unborn passing these laws. So can you speak a little bit to that and how that is related to people going from out of state to New Mexico for abortions?
Yes, so it's been quite an interesting time in New Mexico, especially this year. Because of these laws that have been passed, we have had 6 different either cities or municipalities who have voted in pro-life ordinances. And so basically what they have done is they have banned abortion clinics or chemical abortion drugs from coming into their city limits or their town limits. And so I think that shows New Mexico is not as pro-abortion as the world might think or as our state leadership might think. And so those types of things are growing. People are fighting against these new laws that they have tried to pass because there are several pieces of the legislation that is just unconstitutional. And so New Mexicans are fighting back, and they're saying, no, we're not okay with these new laws. We're not okay with this just unrestricted access, especially to our minors and third parties protected. I mean, this is outrageous, and New Mexicans are speaking up. We're in the midst of a project right now, our referendum project. So in the state of New Mexico, we have the right to referendum to say no. We don't like these laws. We don't want them in New Mexico. And so we are in the middle of the largest grassroots effort that I have ever seen in New Mexico to collect the signatures that we need to get these bills on the ballot so that we can vote them down. And in the process of doing that, we're educating New Mexicans. And when they realize what's happening, when they realize just the darkness that has just overcome our state when it comes to this issue, they're willing to stand up. And it's individual hearts and minds that are being changed, individual hearts and minds that are starting to decide they want to stand up. And that's leading to things like our pro-life ordinances we're seeing across the state.
Cool, so Representative Troxclair, so what are we seeing in the state of Texas regarding this issue?
We are so blessed to live in the state of Texas where we have a legislature that recognizes the importance and the dignity of life. And I just want to, I guess, set the stage as I was thinking about what I wanted to get across in this panel. I thought about Wendy Davis and the filibuster in 2013. Do y'all remember the Wendy Davis filibuster? Where she kind of stood on the Senate floor and arguing for abortion. You know, what does a woman have to do to be heard on this issue? And so, first of all, it's such an honor to be up here with like-minded women, you know, because I feel like we've been kind of pushed aside in the past, right? It's like, well, you know, you only get an opinion if you're a woman. It's like, well, we're women and we get an opinion, you know, and this is what we believe. And I just remember thinking, I was in my early 20s. I didn't necessarily have super strong, I was a recent college graduate, and just watching her thinking, well, she doesn't represent me. And now as a mom, of course, she doesn't represent my daughters. But at that time, can you guys believe that just 10 years ago, it was a controversial knockdown fight to ban abortion after 20 weeks? 20 weeks. And so to think about, as you were speaking, I was thinking about how much progress has been made in just 10 years on this issue. And 10 years is a long time, but it's to go as far as we have to talking about 20 weeks versus the heartbeat bill or versus total ban. What a blessing. What a blessing and what a fight. And so it is very clear that in Texas, state representatives and senators truly believe in the dignity of life, and we're continuing to do everything we can to pass bills, whether it's increasing funding for alternatives to abortion programs, whether it's prioritizing pregnant college students and their ability to register for classes that work with their schedule. We're continuing to make sure that yes, we are recognizing the kids in the womb are children.
So I understand, yes, you're an advocate of the pro-life laws being upheld in Texas. Can you tell me about the plans Texas has moving forward in the next 5 to 10 years?
So, I think in addition to the things that I just mentioned, there has been a big focus on I think sometimes we hear from the left, like, oh, you only care about the baby until it's born, right? And then you don't care. And so allowing or making sure that young women especially know that there is a path for life and that they will not be alone and that they do not need to go to New Mexico. And whether it's adoption or something else, like we are going to be there to provide for their needs. If it's financial concerns, a lot of people just think, well, I don't know if I can afford this baby. Well, great. There's pregnancy resource centers that are helping to provide diapers and clothing and all of these other materials. And so I feel like just as Christians, it is important that vulnerable women understand that they are supported, that they are loved, and that their babies are loved too and worthy of life. And so the push now has been shifted from making sure that those women have the resources that they need and they are aware of their options, and that their options are not their options having a child, right? And then past that, I think even further, listening into the previous panel, when you're talking about banning gender modification or making sure that we passed a bill this session to require parental consent before children under 13 get on social media platforms, things like that we know are social media and gender modification that are contributing to suicide. That's pro-life too. That's pro-life too. And making sure that every person, young or old, knows that there is dignity in life, that it's the very foundation of what our country, what our laws are built on, that protecting life matters, protecting dignity matters. So I see pro-life, honestly, as kind of an umbrella that informs all of the decisions that I certainly make as a legislator, whether it's even things like lowering property tax. We want moms to be able to afford a home for their kids. Just when you think about it, the tentacles spread so far, and it all comes from the basic belief that human life is valuable.
So Chelsey Youman, so going back to the Roe v. Wade case, you played a vital role in overturning the case. Will you provide some insight into the challenges that went into that and speak a little bit about the condition of the hearts and minds on either side? Like what kinds of struggles were related to that?
Yes, I mean, what an incredible victory. I just have to acknowledge after 50 years of prayer and 50 years of serving women, 2,500 pregnancy resource centers started over the course of decades nationwide. It is the biggest lie they ever say that we weren't prepared for that moment. The movement, you guys being a part of this for 50 years, every single point of the way, I think led to that moment and built this infrastructure in place for when Roe was overturned, women had places to go. We were built for it, we were ready for it, and to give a little bit of background on Human Coalition, sometimes I say we're the biggest pro-life organization no one's ever heard of, but we serve women in 18 states across the country. We serve about 50,000 women every single year seeking abortion. So it's high volume. And at our genesis about 13 years ago were some corporate people who were very pro-life who said, our real competition is Planned Parenthood. And what would it look like to reach her before she reaches a Planned Parenthood? And that is online. We know that abortions are moving online. And so while we can talk about our victories all day long, we all know right now there are 19 websites alone, eBay is one of them, where you can pull up your phone, go find the abortion pill, and order it to your door without ever leaving your home. It is devastating and it is dark. And I don't want to depress you, but with Human Coalition serving all these women, they realized in 2019 that they have this wealth of information about why women are seeking abortion, what support systems they need. It goes beyond employment. It goes towards partner support. It goes towards fatherhood. It goes towards child care. 60% already have a child at home that they're struggling to feed and don't know how they're going to feed a new one. And there's a humanity aspect of this for mom and for baby. And that's where they launched the policy side that I am honored to be a part of and said, what would it look like to advocate for the child and the mother? And we really started the path of developing policies and legislation for her, designing it for her needs, based on this wealth of knowledge we have. And of course, we advocated in the Dobbs case. We advocated on her behalf. We advocated that we know firsthand abortion harms women. 1 in 3 are traumatized. 1 in 4 are in our churches. This is not an outside issue to us as Christians. This is in our houses. It's in our families. It's our daughters. It's our cousins. It's our sisters. Sometimes it's us. And for us to say we're going to meet her where she's at, there is healing to be had on this issue so that moms can thrive alongside their living children. Those are the types of policies we advocate for. And it was incredible in Dobbs to see that overruled. But we're just getting started, y'all. The demand is still out there. These women are still out there in our communities. They need love. They need compassion. And they need to know that the lie they've been sold for 50 years from the abortion industry, that they're not capable enough, smart enough, they can't work hard enough, they're not good enough, and that their only option is abortion, that is a lie from the pit of hell. And that we are here to empower them. We are here to stand alongside them and to extend that care. And so that's the work we do, but I think advocating for that, both in the policy realm and at the court level, is a huge gap that we're trying to fill.
So I heard you mention about chemical abortions, or maybe you weren't talking specifically about chemical abortions, but I want to focus on that. So you said that abortions affect the woman. They're not healthy. And so can you speak to chemical abortions and the complications of that?
Yes, this is a huge topic. I'm sure you've all seen in the news that the FDA's protocols, they recklessly removed every semblance of safety protocol that was even in place for women. Over the course of the last few years, that was the Biden administration, and ADF challenged that case. And we know, because we're reaching women online, which I mentioned, hopefully before she's ordering her pills to her doorstep, that our women will call us, our nurses on the line in the middle of their abortion. So they'll take the first pill, which essentially cuts off nutrients to the child, starves the child to death, and then the second pill produces the abortion, essentially causes labor. And they are told it's as easy as taking an Advil, that it's as safe as taking an Advil. Advil doesn't cause hemorrhage. Advil doesn't produce a dead body at the end. They're told they don't need sonograms, and they can only take the pill before 10 weeks, being safe for the FDA, but women are getting the pill into the second trimester. We're having third trimester babies delivered. It's horrific. They don't know how far along they are. We've had multiple women show up. We beg them, come in and get a sonogram. Just let us talk to you first. They were ectopic with pills in hand, which means if they were to take those pills, they could die. So this is a crisis, make no mistake. I've talked to a DA out of Louisiana. He had 2 women between December and March show up dead because of the pills. These stories aren't getting out there. The DAs aren't prosecuting. They don't know where to start. These manufacturers aren't being held accountable for the laws, the multitude of laws they're breaking to get into the state. And so what I'll end with this for you is you are such a key part of this equation. Because the laws that we've drafted with outside counsel to help advocate to stop the websites from selling the drugs, to stop the Postal Service from mailing them, to stop the manufacturers from reckless disregard for women and children, those laws are aggressive, and our politicians are being told we're not going to back them up, that voters aren't there for them. And so I think the biggest thing that I would say is just courage of our convictions, to embolden our leaders, to do what we want them, to do what we've elected them to do, to protect the most vulnerable among us. And I stand here with Representative Troxclair, so honored you're here on this panel, in a climate where it's difficult to be pro-life publicly. We know churches are getting vandalized, pregnancy resource centers are getting firebombed, the threats are coming in, we've had to get bulletproof casing for all of our facilities. But to stand in this gap, in courage of our convictions, you do that every day, you guys do that every day, and I want to thank you for that and say continue to show up, preach the gospel, disciple on this issue. Our voices have to be heard.
That's great. I'm going to ask each of you individually the same questions. So we'll start with you. What can all of us do here today to contribute to a pro-life America?
I answered that.
So for me, from the standpoint of being a neighboring state, New Mexico, we're the ones seeing the huge increase of Texas women coming across the border to receive abortion. And so when I consider, what you guys can do to help this issue, I come back to the hearts and minds. We're not going to win hearts and minds by trying to beat them over the head with a pro-life speech. We're going to win hearts and minds by having compassion, by ministering to women, not just trying to preach at them, but to show up and show them that you care, that you want to help. As each one has talked about, it's about mom and baby. And how can you, as an individual, be part of ministering to a woman? Because when you minister to her and you show her the love of Christ and you show her acceptance, then that does something to her. And if her heart and her mind begins to be changed, she's not going to be coming to New Mexico to get an abortion. And so, from my perspective, that I believe is something that is crucial for individuals in Texas to remember the power of ministering to an individual. You have more credence, you have more ethos with the people in your sphere. You can make a difference. You have relationships, you have connections. Use them, and don't ever forget that you are here to show the love of Christ. His word says that they will know us by the way we love one another. And so that is my encouragement to you all. Love them. Show up for them. Don't just talk about it. Act it out.
That's hard to follow because I totally just resonate so much with everything that you just said. I think that you'll agree too that prayer is the number one thing that always my go-to of how can we help, how can we support. But interestingly, I was gonna say something along the same lines of winning hearts and minds and being the happy warriors. And I know that this is a much bigger issue that we're going to solve than we are going to solve right here in this panel. But going back to my experience watching that debate between Wendy Davis and trying to abort babies after 20 weeks, the thing that stuck out to me as an impressionable young woman was just the absolute anger and hatred and nastiness. And of all the things in the world that I could think of that I cared about, I could not fathom how my number one priority could be wanting to kill somebody else's child. And that is something that I have carried with me since then, and now has shaped my views as a leader. And so we live in an increasingly divisive world, whether it's politics, we're siloed, we're on our phones, it's social media, and we know that the next generation is being impacted by this even more than we are. But we are not, we don't know our neighbors like we used to. We don't go to the Friday night football games like we used to. We are not united as a community like we used to. And so that means that the woman who needs help might not know who to turn to. She might not have that friend. She might not have that support. So my mission recently has just been to try to model that people who are happy and successful and loving, and that's magnanimous, right? You want to be around that person. You don't want to be around the person who's angry and hate-filled and blah, blah. You want to be around the people who are going to be an example of Christ's love. So you never know whether you're at the grocery store or whether you're on Facebook, or you never know who out there is looking at you and thinking, you know what? She seems so happy. What can I do to be more like her? And I just feel like that is an important part overall of the society that we're living in now, is just like of modeling that love. And another thing that I really want to touch on very quickly is we are living in a time where the line between right and wrong is being blurred or completely erased. And I could say that about so many different issues that we're facing right now. But we know what is right and wrong. You know in your heart what is right and wrong. You know what the importance of integrity. You know the importance of rule of. We could just go down. And so stand firm on your values, and then go out there and be those happy warriors and continue to share that message. And I think the more that we can do that, the more that people are naturally going to gravitate to our perspectives on the issue. They're going to want to talk to us about it. They're going to come to us as a resource. Like, hey, I saw that you posted this thing, and you might know a little bit about this issue. Can you tell me about so-and-so? And it's just opening up those conversations in a world of increased isolation, I think, is one of the best things we can do to save our country.
I am going to echo a lot of what Jodi and Representative just said, but I speak primarily from the foundation that I used to be pro-abortion, and that I changed my mind. And we have a huge fight in front of us, obviously legislatively, and with our policies. But I think the biggest thing that we have in front of us is changing from a culture of death to a culture of life. That is the biggest fight that we have against us. And from somebody who used to be pro-abortion, I can promise you that it is not the yelling or getting into fights with people that is going to help win a culture of life. What's going to help win a culture of life is treating people with compassion, with love, with Christ's love, sharing the truth with compassion. I changed my mind because I was completely misinformed, and then I watched videos about what abortion actually is at every trimester, at every type of abortion that there is, and it gutted me. And that would not have been available to me if I did not just open myself up to that information, but also let people gently share that with me and say, hey, check this out, look at this video. And I don't shove those things down anyone's face when they're getting in my face about their beliefs about pro-abortion, but take a breath. See them as another child of God, and that they have dignity as well, and that they deserve the truth, because these people are not just angry about these policies, they are so gravely misinformed about what abortion actually is. The pro-abortion lobby does a fantastic job about lying about what abortion is, and that a baby isn't a baby, that it's just a clump of cells, that it's like a tumor. That's what they want you to think, and that's what the vast majority of pro-abort supporters are thinking. And so you have to take that into mind and really share the truth with compassion. Share the science with compassion. Science backs us up. We know that. We know it's the truth, that life begins at conception. And so treat people with compassion. Help them to see the truth and love them towards that, and be Christ's friend to them. Yeah.
This has been a great panel to be a part of. I'm really honored to be sitting next to y'all. I've already said what I thought would be important, so I won't go too long. I will say just like keeping our sense of urgency about this issue. It's easy to do a victory lap after such a big victory like Roe being overturned and the historic Texas Heartbeat Act, and these victories we have are incredible. 50,000 kids in Texas still estimated to have died last year due to abortion. So still have a sense of urgency, support your pregnancy resource centers, support your churches, have your churches be talking about this. I think maybe some pastors don't know how to engage. There's a lot of church hurt here. We can't heal as the body of Christ until we deal with some of these things. And there are hurting fathers and mothers in your midst. And so maybe even simply as starting your own compassionate healing ministry in your own body, starting there. And then Texas Values does an incredible job throughout session. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he knows it. He knows. I mean, they're up there, you guys know, every single day of session. I see them everywhere in every hallway when I'm there. We have some bills designed to tie off some of these loose ends, these loopholes that have formed, whether it's our DAs refusing to enforce and giving some jurisdiction to the Attorney General's office to help with that, whether it's holding, like I said, the websites accountable. We have several bills, and we ran a few plays at the same time. I think encouraging our legislators to be bold in this ministry and mission that they've been given. And I know Texas Values will be a great asset in helping us all get the word out about this. So if you get a call from them, you get some action alerts from them on these bills, look out for them. You'll know that this is what we talked about today.
Along those same lines, I just want to encourage you as a tangible, practical thing that you can go home today and do is just to send a quick email or make a quick phone call to a legislator who is pro-life and just say, we are always, I mean, I took 2,200 votes this session, and believe you me, I always hear about the one vote that somebody disagreed with me on, you know? So take a moment of appreciation, and if it's not if your state representative is not a pro-life member, send them an email, tell them that you know, why you believe what you believe, and let them know that you're praying for them. And then pick another pro-life member and just call them or write them an email and say, you know, I really appreciate your stance on this. We're so grateful for your support, because there's a lack of like your legislators need to hear that you care about this issue, that you're watching, and that you really appreciate what they're doing.
I just want to quickly add on to that too, because a lot of the feedback we get from legislators in all of the states is that going to a March for Life and then hearing from their constituents is so refreshing, because they take a beating in the media. You guys take a beating in the media because you're standing for life, and frankly, the devil does not like that. So, actually talking to your legislators and encouraging them and thanking them for what they're doing is extraordinarily impactful, and I completely agree with Representative Troxclair about it. So go and do it.
So this is great. So it sounds like one way that you guys can help going home across the board, compassion, and contact your legislator. All right, thank you guys.